Going live. Hey there, everybody. Welcome once again back to Liberty Speakeasy. As always, Chairman Mike here with a full beard, hanging out with Myra Mateka, my wonderful co-host. And tonight, our special co-host is Joe Bishop-Henchman. He is the chairman of the Libertarian Party. That is the National Libertarian Party. And it's fantastic to have you. Joe, how's everything going for you?
It's great to be with you. Working on a brief right now. We're suing the IRS again. That's what I do in my day job when I'm not helping build up the Libertarian Party, elect libertarians everywhere. But a lot of exciting stuff going on, and great to escape highlighting and reading and writing for an hour to be with you tonight.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out. I know you have a busy schedule, so it's fantastic to be able to have you on here and talking with us tonight. So. First and foremost, we want to kind of dive right into how things are going on the national party at the national level. What's been going on? Is there any big shakeups or anything along those lines? And kind of what are you doing since back in July when you took over this role?
Yeah, no, a lot of good questions there. Well, first and foremost, it's an exciting time to be a libertarian.
Yes, it is.
I joined the party back in 1992 when I was younger, and just comparing apples to apples on any metric of where we were then and where we are now, it's pretty impressive. The country's really crying out for a real option now, and they're not getting that from the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans they're going to be deciding whether they're going to be pro-Trump or anti-Trump or whatever for some time to come. And the Democrats, they may be together right now for the moment, now that they're assuming power, but, they've got their civil war going on as well between their socialist and anti-socialist wings. Even when they do come together to propose things, it's just more spending and more government agencies and more bureaucracy. And so I'm here in DC. We're 2 miles from the Capitol, just drove past it on the way back from a meeting, and we're gearing up for that right now. A whole blizzard of new spending and new government agencies here in Washington, DC, and that's not gone unnoticed. So people all over the country are changing their registrations to Libertarian. I keep seeing news stories and hearing stories from our state affiliates on a surge in new Libertarian registrations, a surge in new memberships. At the National Party, our fundraising is running 20% above what it was last year so far in January. And January was an election year, or 2020 was an election year. 2021 is not. So that's very unusual for us. Usually we see a dip in 2021. And, I think just the Republican Party has proven that it can't govern. And the Democratic Party, that's just not really a home for a lot of people. Maybe it was a little convenient thing for the election, but, the direction that they're going, I think people are going to sour pretty fast. The last time the Democrats had control of the House and the Senate and the presidency, that only lasted 2 years because they overreached. And, we'll see if they do that again this time. But, we've got Justin Amash as a spokesperson. We've got 2 state legislators, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but we had 0 as of 4 months ago. So you're asking how things have changed since I became chair. Big priority of mine is getting libertarians into elected office, which hasn't always been the #1 priority of the National Party, but it is now. And so we're very pleased that we elected Marshall Byrd in Wyoming, and he just got his first bill out of first reading of in the Wyoming House yesterday, so that's very exciting. We got John Andrews in Maine who switched to join us, and then we've got several hundred local elected officials. And these were not accidental wins. These were not lightning strike wins, as I call them. These were people who are good libertarians, active in their community, well known in their community, and put in the hard work, knocking on doors, making phone calls, showing up at community events to get themselves elected. So Marshall Byrd got 53% of the vote in his district to win his seat. And we at National, we helped out with some door knocking teams. We helped out with phone bankers from across the country. We helped out with some messaging and strategic help, really as a test. And the test worked. We proved that libertarians can win a majority and win elected office. And I am eager to expand that to more local wins in 2021, more state legislative wins in 2022, as fast as libertarians across the country want to move. So, if you're interested in helping out with that, we need more money, more volunteers, more donors, more candidates, more everything. But we've proven we can pull it off. And so I'm very excited about the opportunity. The wind's certainly at our backs.
That's so awesome. And I have some follow-up questions, but first, I think MCJ forgot to introduce me. So I'm feeling a little.
I mentioned you, didn't I?
Kind
with me as always is
Yeah.
Myra.
I know, but I'm here. I'm here today.
Do better than
I just want to say, I think it's super
I'm not.
cool. It's super cool that I get MCJ and JBH together on the same screen. And also, he might not know this, but Joe, everybody's going to be a little bit jealous, but I got a special card from Joe in the mail, and I think he wants to be my new best friend.
Wait.
So yeah.
I got one. I thought I was the only one.
He was even smart enough. He was even smart enough to send it after the inauguration to make sure we were having a Happy New Year.
There we go.
I'll tell you the honest truth. We sent those back when we sent them as holiday cards, and that they're arriving now. Well, I guess the post office is having the best year right now. So.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
I'm glad they arrived.
I think it's great. But I wanted to ask you said you're just a couple miles from the Capitol. I want to know what life is like and how it's changed just even in the last few weeks since the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. January's been very intense for us residents of Washington, D.C. We had there's something I always say when people blame us in Washington. So I lived in D.C. for 15 years. People blame us in DC for everything that's going wrong, and I say it's not us in DC. It's all the people you guys send here to do stuff, and that was certainly the case on January 6th, where we were all in our homes watching as out-of-state people went nuts, and then the response was we had about 25,000 National Guard and police forces that essentially have built and manned a giant non-scalable fence around the U.S. Capitol. And so, leading up to the inauguration, it was basically a no-go zone in downtown D.C., which is a small part of the city, but certainly a very well-known one and one that you kind of have to go through if you're traveling around. So that's been very inconvenient, I would say, and certainly sends a bad message. So that fence is still up. Just came back from my office, which is 2 blocks from the Capitol and 1 block from that fence that's still there. And the news of the day is that the new head of the Capitol Police, the last one had to quit or had to be fired, but the new head of the Capitol Police wants to keep it up, wants to make it more permanent, and really unanimity from the residents of DC that we don't want that. We think, at least here in DC, and I think people across the country probably agree with this, that U.S. Capitol should be open. It's people's house, should be accessible. Obviously, you shouldn't be able to go and ransack it, but the solution to that is not a bigger, higher wall. That's a solution that the last president would have come up with, and we deserve better than that. So that's kind of the news of the day, where we're really taking umbrage at what they want to do on the Capitol Police. And of course, we in DC have no voice on that. Because it's decided entirely by the federal officials. So we'll see. It's been a very busy time for us in DC because people keep, during the Trump administration, you have people coming every week to protest, and then that's kind of seems to have carried on. It's been very exhausting in a lot of ways, but we're carrying on. We just had indoor dining open back up last week, which is, long overdue and very much needed. DC's been very good at allowing restaurants to expand into parking spaces and sidewalks and unused spaces and easing up on the liquor rules. And The mayor just announced that she's planning on making some of those changes permanent, which was a key ask of the DC Libertarian Party of, why do we want to have these restrictions when they've proven that, we people can be responsible with them. So why roll them back? It's kind of a bit ironic that, DC, which is certainly the bluest jurisdiction when it comes to the presidential vote. And we have a lot of, it's an all Democratic city council. But we're actually pretty good on a lot of our policies, at least certainly more open on things like alcohol regulation and liquor regulation and tax policy and even on vaccine stuff. I was just talking with somebody in Kentucky where their governor is yelling at Walgreens for giving extra doses that were about to expire out to people who were in the store, and that happened in DC. And the mayor and the health department praised Walgreens and said, yes, that's exactly what you should be doing. So we're very common sense here. I don't know what kind of drives that, but it's a little enclave. So when you think of DC, don't always think of the federal people, because we got residents living here too.
Well, and that kind of leads into something that I saw today, that they have a bill out to have DC become the 51st state. What are your thoughts on that?
So our position on the DC Libertarian Party is that until we get voting representation, we shouldn't have to pay the federal income tax. So it's a bit strategically ambiguous there, in that we'll honestly take either of those bargains. But right now we have to pay the same federal income tax all of you do without being able to get voting representation in the House of Representatives or the U.S. Senate. It's the Puerto Rico has they've chosen, or not chosen, but they've kind of had forced on them that they don't pay federal income tax. There's precedent for that. So that'd be our approach on that. But I mean, it's hard to find a DC resident that doesn't support us being able to have representation, certainly if we're having to pay the taxes for it.
Absolutely. Carl Crambeck wants to know, how much GameStop do you have, or GameStop stock do you have?
I've missed out on that whole trend there, so I'm afraid I don't have any GameStop stock. God,
I know, right?
Yeah. I do have some American Airlines stock though today, so we'll see. Because I saw a news story that maybe that's the next one. I don't know whether that's true or not, but maybe I'll benefit from that, I guess. But don't put money you're not afraid to lose into the stock.
Well, and watching Larry Sharp last night, it kind of opened my eyes a lot with that whole debacle. And he made a very good point that it's a casino. In all honesty, that's what it amounts to. You're taking your chances with your money. You put it in there, and if you lose, you lose. If you win, that's great. But yeah, I agree 100%. If you don't have the money, don't do it.
And I do think it's nuts that they're letting, that app is letting you, I think it's letting you buy but not sell. I mean, that doesn't sound right.
Nope, I agree. Another question that just came up here before we go back to ours: what about returning the district to Maryland? What's your thoughts on this as far as DC going back to Maryland? Is that even an option at this point, or is that something that can actually be done?
I think it theoretically can be done, but Maryland doesn't support it and DC doesn't support it. So the only people who really support it are people who oppose DC statehood. So.
Yep, fair enough. While we're on the whole DC thing, you mentioned what happened on the 6th at the Capitol. John Brennan recently labeled, for lack of a better word, libertarians in the same group as racist, bigots, terrorists, everything along those lines. What's the Libertarian Party response? I know we had a response, and I know you guys had a response on Twitter as well. What are your feelings on that, and what should the response be as far as people, maybe if they want to come into the party and they fall in one of those groups? And what's the expectation in that regard? Is there a home here for them?
So John Brennan, if you don't know who he was was the CIA director under Obama, and I think he had a position under the G.W. Bush administration too. He's pro-torture. He's pro-intervention in other countries. And so, he found certainly a ready audience of that in the second Bush administration, and then Obama saw fit for whatever reason to keep him on doing that kind of stuff at the CIA under him. Libertarians are not pro-torture, and libertarians are not pro-overseas adventurism. So he's had a thing about us for a long time because Rand Paul filibustered his nomination to the CIA. Whenever he's popped up with some of his crazy statements, libertarians are really the only ones who push back on him. So he really doesn't like libertarians. And so I honestly wasn't surprised to see him work libertarians into this long list of horribles, because I'm sure in his mind, we are horrible because we don't want people to be tortured, and we don't want us, with troops in 100 countries and bombing everybody and using military force as the answer to every problem the way he does. So he's out of government now. He can't seem to get a job. And so he's an MSNBC contributor. That's what he does. And so he's paid to say outrageous things. And so he delivered and said that outrageous thing. And I'm sure he's hoping that Biden administration officials will watch that and be like, well, we need to, throw the libertarians into the sausage with everybody else, because they're right now the FBI has got pictures of everybody who's in the Capitol, and they're tracking them all down. So we might as well round up all the libertarians too. That's not who we are, and hopefully no one will listen to him. And if they do, it's a big violation of the Constitution and good policy, and we certainly won't stand for that. But nobody's listened to John Brennan in a few years. He's certainly done a good job discrediting himself on his own. So I'm pretty confident that no one else will listen to him. But of course, as you mentioned, we couldn't let it go without a response. So we did push back a little bit, or quite a bit, and said, don't. ACLU doesn't like John Brennan. Libertarian Party doesn't like John Brennan. Rand Paul doesn't like John Brennan. So nobody else should listen to what he has to say either. So, but he's been gunning for us for a while, and I'm sure he'll keep gunning for us because in his mind, libertarians are standing in the way of the Pax Americana across the world that will solve all of the problems by planting the American flag in every foreign capital.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of a good segue to one of my questions that I had for you. After the election, obviously we've still are feeling the effects of a split nation, and the inauguration has shown that, and what happened at the Capitol has shown that. But it's being followed up in our own social medias too. You can tell how deep the divide has gone, pitting family members against family members. There was one thread that I read from a close family member, and basically everybody was just jumping on her saying, if you supported this person, then that means you think that my rights are non-existent and that I shouldn't have any rights, or that means that you're a racist. And this general theme that half of the country is calling the other half of the country really bad things right now. And we're seeing it from both sides. So how do you think libertarians fit in this? And what's our strategy to help heal that kind of divide that's going on?
No, I'm glad you asked that, because it's a very real problem. And, I'm sure you're obviously not the only one to have experienced that in your family or your circle of friends. For my job where I work with states all over the country, helping them improve their tax systems, make them less terrible. So I'm always working with red states and blue states and liberals and conservatives and Democrats and Republicans. And, it's very real and it's out there, and it's worth asking why that's happened and then what we as libertarians can do about it, because I really do think we're part of the solution for that. So why has it happened? A lot of it is contrived here in this city, in Washington, D.C. Some time ago, the Republicans decided that they couldn't win on policy, that they couldn't present a positive vision for the country. And so the way that they were going to win would be to demonize the Democrats. And, you know, it's not just they're the opposition, it's that they're evil, they're the enemy, you let them in power, and, you know, everything will go apart. So we need to do everything we can to prevent that from happening. And that's the sole messaging that they have. And if you watched campaign ads before the election, you know, with a few exceptions, for the most part, that's the messaging. It's unless you want evil to win, you need to turn out and vote Republican. So why do the Republicans do this? How did they learn how to do this? Well, they learned how to do it from the Democrats, because the Democrats have been doing it for a long time too. And, you know, I'm not that old, but I remember when George W. Bush was president, and for all people talk very kindly about him today, Democrats were not very kind about him at the time. I mean, he was the, and, you know, whether he was or not, I mean, the Democrats certainly characterized him as evil, as a monster, as an idiot. And, you know, even Mitt Romney, who seems to be Democrats' favorite Republican now, when he was running for president, that certainly wasn't the characterization of things for Mitt Romney. So Democrats keep saying all this stuff, and turns out people listen to that. And so you've got a lot of Democrats who think that if the Republicans win, it'll be the end of the world. And you have a lot of Republicans who think that if the Democrats win, it'll be the end of the world. And there's a lot of consultants and people who work in this city, in DC, who make sure that that's the message that gets out there, and that keeps being fed. And you see it on, you know, on Fox News and MSNBC. You see it in editorials. You see it in direct mail pieces. You see it in politician speeches. They've decided that the only way that they can succeed, the only way they can keep office and get contracts and be reelected, is to make everybody scared about the other side. So what can we as libertarians do about this? Well, it's two things. One, we can set a better example. We don't have to demonize everybody else. We can actually provide a positive vision for what we want to do and the solutions of a libertarian society and smaller government and more individual freedom. And so we don't have to be negative like that. And our winning elected libertarians demonstrated that, because they ran on positive platforms, connecting with voters on issues that they care about, and were able to win elected office on that. The other thing that we can do is talk about how the solutions that we offer of smaller government and more freedom actually do help address this problem. Because right now, everybody's going a zero-sum game over control of the US Senate and control of the White House, because it really does decide everything. If 51% of people can get together and control all branches of government, they control the whole game. And they decide what businesses get to open. They decide what, how much income will go to taxation. They decide whether, what social rights we have. I mean, it's the whole game. Whereas if we have government smaller, have more things decided by communities, by states, by the market, by individuals, it's less of a, end all be all of who gets elected president. And there is some precedent in that in this country on that. I mean, it used to be, it didn't really matter who the president was, because the president didn't really have a lot of power. And it didn't really matter who controlled Congress, because the real power was with communities and cities and individuals and the states. And we can return to that again. And I really think that's the solution here, because, I mean, nobody fights about what cereal will be carried in a grocery store, because the grocery store meets the market by providing all of the options. And it's not just we all vote and decide what one cereal will be in the grocery store. Maybe that's a simplistic example, but it's kind of a directional change that we can go, and we can offer that.
Excellent. Going to some viewer questions here. We have a couple more that came in here recently. Some of the upcoming chair challengers are saying National isn't talking about the government lockdowns enough. What do you think about the government enforced lockdowns? What's your position on that? And what should the LP's position as a whole be on that?
Well, I mean, they're counterproductive. I don't think they're effective. I mean, my home state of California has got the or at least until recently, the severest lockdown in the country, where, I mean, everything was closed except essential businesses. And, I'm not a epidemiologist, but they seem to have a really bad epidemic, worse than a lot of other states. Here in DC, we had shut down indoor dining for a bit, but businesses for the most part are open. Offices are closed, people work from home, but everyone's masked and everyone social distances and everything. And we seem to be managing with the pandemic as our rates are certainly a lot better than California's are. I think what happens with lockdowns is, you pass those things and the people that are going to stay home or be careful, they're going to do that anyways. So they're still going to do that. And then the people that aren't going to follow the law, they ignore it anyways. And up to and including people like the governor of California, where, he I think it was like the next day after he announced no more indoor dining, was caught, at a fancy restaurant with a whole bunch of lobbyists who were, I think, lobbying him for exemptions from the lockdown statute. And the arbitrariness really gets to me. And, I was in Vermont for a little bit. My husband's from Vermont, so we're up there pretty regularly. And in their lockdown, they shut down non-essential businesses. But as in many states, the definition of what was non-essential was completely left up to political discretion. And you better believe people took advantage of that to, include themselves, or even worse, stick their competitors in the the non-essential category, so that they would get a competitive advantage. And I mean, that's just really disgusting. It's unfortunately pretty inherent in the political process. And I think you see a lot of people really recognizing that about these lockdowns, that it's not, a bunch of experts sitting around crafting perfect policy, that it really is a bunch of bumbling politicians making it up as they go along. And you really see that in California, where they're not even releasing the data that they're using to make these decisions. So, for a long time, they said, we're not easing up on the lockdown because the ICUs are in bad shape. There's no capacity in the ICUs. People would say, well, give us the numbers. And it was like, well, we're not releasing those. And then last week they announced, we're easing up on the lockdown, and the ICU numbers haven't changed, the ones that are available. In fact, they're kind of even a little bit worse. So, I mean, why are we making these decisions? What's driving all of this? It's really undermined a lot of people's faith in the government, which, for us as libertarians, maybe isn't such a bad thing, that people have that realization of things. But unfortunately, in the process, really done a lot of economic damage, harmed a lot of small businesses, some of which will never recover, harmed a lot of people's savings, a lot of work ethic, a lot of kids who have missed out on a year of education. A lot of people have kind of suffered psychology. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but that's at least where I am on that. And as far as, national handing out talking points or whatever, I mean, we put out stuff, but generally my view is libertarians don't need a central authority to tell them what to think. You got news sources, they're out there. We could probably provide a little bit more in terms of, here's interesting information here. If you're lobbying, here's some things you can say. So actually we're hiring an activism coordinator for the first time at the national level to help provide some of that information. In addition, we're adding a communications director for the first time in a long time. I think these are essential things that national can do to help arm our activists all over the country with information and help push stuff. But for the most part, if you want to know what I think on a thing, I'm a libertarian. So, ask any libertarian and you'll get the answer.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. I know Myra had a question on the Patriot Party, and this has kind of been answered by you. So I'll let Myra ask her question. We had a comment come up, Trump phenomenon disillusioned quite a few Republicans to the party. There's been talk of the Patriot Party. You mentioned how we're going to try to get those people to align with libertarian ideals, but I'll let Myra ask her question, because I know you had one in regards to the Patriot Party as well.
Sure.
So, yeah, my biggest question about this whole thing, and it's kind of gone back and forth from the people that I've polled, is forming the Patriot Party. Does that make our ballot access easier or harder? Does that make the split off Republicans that aren't a part of the Patriot Party want to lobby for harder restrictions to keep them off the ballot, thereby keeping us off the ballot too? Or does it make it easier if people in the Patriot Party are already in the legislation seats? Will they ease up on our ballot access? Which way do you think that'll go?
I don't know. There's not really a precedent for it. There's obviously been right-wing populist parties before. There's the American Independent Party that George Wallace founded in 1968, a few of which chapters still exist. There was the U.S. Taxpayers Party and the Constitution Party, I think is still on a number of state ballots that kind of fits that. And in fact, the Constitution Party was really excited about Trump. So they might be wondering, what about us? Let's talk about a Patriot Party. You got to get the party off the ground, obviously, and that takes, as any libertarian knows, a lot of hard work and a lot of money and a lot of nights and weekends and effort. So we'll see how much Donald Trump's into this, because he's talking both about forming a new party and making sure everybody who's against him is primaried in the Republican primary. And I suppose maybe you can do both, but they're really two completely different endeavors. And he controls the Republican Party infrastructure. The RNC is the Republican National Committee, or my counterpart to the Libertarian National Committee, entirely Trump loyalist organization. They just kind of had a standing ovation of him after the Capitol thing. So, I mean, that shows you where they stand on it. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen state party after state party, Republican parties issuing resolutions praising Donald Trump and denouncing everybody who voted for impeachment or who has said nasty things about him or opposed him. So it's still very much a Trump party. So I don't know why they need to create a new party, because he's already got the Republican Party. But if he does proceed on that and they are able to proceed, I mean, they're going to run into fundraising issues and ballot access issues pretty quickly. So we're a political party. That means we have to be registered under the Federal Election Commission, and we are capped in the amount of monetary contributions that we can accept. So the idea behind that from the 70s, I guess, was to get a broader base, but it really hamstrings parties other than the Democrat or Republican Party. And it didn't always used to be this way. I mean, George Wallace, despicable person as he was, when he was setting up his third party in 1968, he could basically go to a handful of rich people and say, "Help me launch this party," and he was able to do that. We can't do that. We've got to collect smaller amounts from more people, which makes it a lot harder. The other obstacle they're going to run into is ballot access, and I've yet to meet a libertarian that cannot speak with expertise on the challenges of ballot access. It's all very near and dear to our hearts. Oh, yeah. And anybody who's never worked in the field underestimates that, as Kanye West did last year, when he thought just by spending a couple $1 million he could get ballot access, and he ended up on the ballot in only 11 states, because it's very difficult to do.
And he thought that was a win. He thought he was super successful with 11 states.
Yeah.
Well, I know libertarians would not think I was super successful if I only got us on the ballot. We know what the standard is. No. And,
you wouldn't have sent this very nice holiday party.
Right. So we're, if anybody doesn't know, our presidential candidate is on the ballot in all 50 states and the District of Columbia consistently. And we were able to do that despite all of the obstacles and the pandemic and all the stuff that was thrown at us. I mean, we had to go out and get signatures. Democrats and Republicans don't have to get signatures. We had to deal with court fights. We had to deal with our petitions being evaluated by commissions made up of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans to decide whether we were going to be on the ballot. This is the stuff that you have to go up against. And unless you know what you're doing, it's very easy to fail at that, even if you spend lots and lots of money.
But honestly, you know what? It gets easier for us every time we have to do it, though, because we've done it before. The only thing we have to adjust for is new laws that get passed. But usually we're well versed in those laws to either be able to sue the states or get a jump start on it, so that we know what we're working up against. But it's really the great efforts that we have in our states that really make all of that happen. It's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, we have people who stand in the rain to get signatures. We have people who, give up their weekends and their nights to get signatures. We have people who, it's just an amazing work. I mean, money can't buy what we're able to do, and that's good because we wouldn't have been able to get on the ballot with all of that hard work and that effort. And it's, if you've never done it before, it's hard work. And I pitched in 4 or 5 states this year, or in 2020. Getting us on the ballot, just to be on the ground helping with the effort, and it's hard. It's hard in no more years. It was very hard in the pandemic because people don't want to stand next to you with a clipboard and take the.
They don't want to touch your pen.
Yeah,
they don't want to do anything.
Yeah. But we were able to do it, and I would not say it was easy. I would say we make it look easy, which is good.
And I know this year, obviously, I've gathered signatures before, both for my campaigns and other campaigns. But this year was really eye-opening for me. First time kind of heading up that whole signature drive for a presidential campaign here in Iowa. And honestly, we have some amazing volunteers that really came out in full force and put in time and effort, and we couldn't do that without those volunteers. A lot of people were getting 100+ signatures, and which is amazing. Small towns coming from all over the state. I think we had 70+ counties. We have 99 total, but 70+ counties represented in those signatures, which is huge. That shows that we're getting our message across to the state. So, yeah, it was definitely very, very, very eye-opening for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, we practice what we preach on it. I was on the ground helping with the Pennsylvania effort, and they had a leaderboard of who was doing the most signatures, and that person would get prizes and all that. At National, because I took over as chair on July 12th, so I had quite a few months of our most intense ballot access drives that I was helping supervise. Because we mostly leave it to the states, and then National kind of parachutes in and deploys additional resources where it's necessary to get us over the line. But for the most part, that was just that. It was getting it over the line. The states did the lion's share of the work, and because of that, we're already automatically on the ballot in 30 states for 2024. So we've only got only those 20 additional states that we have to do, and we're working hard to do what we can legislatively and legally to make that, reduce that number even before then. So tomorrow we're filing our motion in a case in the state of Maine to, what they did in Maine is they threw out all of the libertarian registrations and said, you have to register again if you want to be registered libertarian. We think that's illegal. We're hoping the judge agrees with us. The judge said very nice things in the hearing, so our fingers are crossed on that one. Today in Indiana, libertarians were working the state capitol where there's a bill to make it harder for our governor and senator candidates to get on the ballot. Don Rainwater ran for governor last year. He did really well. He got into the teens of % of votes. Some polls had him in first place. So it's a really good sign for the future of the Democratic Party, or excuse me, the Libertarian Party in Indiana. And they're playing dirty. They're going to pass. They're trying to pass a bill to make it harder for us to get on the ballot. And libertarians have been. We heard their phone lines and their email boxes have been blowing up in the state legislature today. So maybe we're hearing that the sponsors getting some cold feet and legislators are getting cold feet about voting for it. So the vote was supposed to happen today. They've kicked it off till next Monday. So we're hoping everybody in Indiana keeps up the pressure and make sure that doesn't pass. But I mean, this is the stuff we're dealing with. That's just this week. So just to give you an example of the stuff we're preparing, this week in 2021, which is not an election year, to get ready for 2024.
Excellent. Going back to the questions here, we kind of touched base, and you just mentioned the Frontier Project and everything along those lines. And we already talked a little bit about getting libertarians elected. What are some other strategies that we're doing? Maybe mentioning the Frontier Project is a great idea as far as what we're doing with that. What are some other strategies that we're doing, or what we do to be able to get more libertarians elected at all levels?
Yeah, well, it's finding quality candidates, it's getting messaging that works, and it's building campaign infrastructure. So those are the three things that I'm focused on. So finding good candidates, if you've not interacted with Kara Schultz, who's our candidate recruitment specialist, she herself is an elected official. She's a city council member in Minnesota, and she's just got an eye for finding great candidates and helping people become even better candidates. So if you're thinking about running for local office or for state office, definitely get in touch with her or get in touch with me and I'll connect you. She's doing trainings all the time, and we're about to unveil a campaign manager certification program.
Nice.
So if you go through, we're trying to regloss her excellent classes. So if you go through all of her classes, you get recognized as an official certified Libertarian Party campaign manager. And so you can take that and help run excellent campaigns and be an even better candidate. So looking forward to that announcement coming soon. Part of it's messaging that works. For a long time, libertarians have been winning debates and losing elections. We like to argue. We like to show how much we know, and we do know a lot. But when you're on the doorstep talking to a voter, they want to know how what you want to do will make their life better. Mm-hmm. And it's not changing who we are. It's not changing our principles. It's just articulating them in a way the audience wants to hear them. So if somebody wants to know, because of the pandemic, I've been out of work for almost a year, and I'm having trouble making my rent and getting food on the table. And my kid hasn't been able to go to school for months and months and months. What are our answers for those things? And we've got a lot of answers for them. We can talk at length about them, but we got to make sure that we're communicating we're hearing what that person is saying, and we're communicating that. One of the greatest days that I had last year as chair is a day in Columbus, Ohio, when I was shadowing our vice presidential nominee, Spike Cohen. And he went to the state capitol in Columbus, where there was a Black Lives Matter demonstration. And he went and talked to every one of the activists that were there. And for the most part, he listened. He does what libertarians find it so hard to do. He didn't talk at them. He listened and wanted to hear their complaints and what they were hearing. And it made a big impact on them because libertarians were there. Who wasn't there? Democrats or Republicans. Yeah. They'll show up when there's a camera there's a photo opportunity, but when real people are trying to redress their grievances at the state capitol, they're nowhere to be seen. But we were there, and he walked away with their endorsement. And for anybody who says that libertarians can't reach African Americans, libertarians can't reach the working class, libertarians can't speak to people with those experiences, that he demonstrated that's obviously not the case, that we can. And that our message does have a receptive audience when we know how to communicate it. We all know what we want to do is the right thing. We care about people being educated. We care about people having a roof over their heads. We care about people succeeding economically. And we know what the Democrats and Republicans are offering aren't going to solve those problems. So we just have to be able to communicate that in a way that people can hear it. And then the third thing is campaign infrastructure. You want to win election, you got to know where the likely voters are. You got to know how to, the techniques, how many doors you need to knock to get one vote, how many phone calls you need to make to get one vote, how many door hangers you need to leave to get one vote. What should the door hanger say? How do you best articulate those things? It's a science. It's a training. And we offer those classes. National provides that strategic help. It just takes a lot of shoe leather. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whatever you think of her politics, and I have lots of thoughts about her politics, but the way she won was she wore out sets of shoes going door to door in her district, listening to people and communicating their problems. And it's not that her district is, majority socialist. Far from it. It's she showed up, she listened, she talked to people, and convinced them that she's the best representative for their interests in Washington, D.C. And there's no reason in the world why libertarians can't do the same by offering an even better message and even better solutions.
I think you made some very excellent points, and it's what I've said this before, but I think one of the main struggles, and it depends on what state you're in and where you are in the process, but a lot of our organizations have a hard time making the step between an activist organization to a political organization, because those two things serve very different ideas and they sway people in different ways. An activist organization is working with the community, whereas a political organization needs to be going out and counting votes and trying to sway voters. And those two operations are really, really different. And I think that's one of our main big struggles in some areas, is making that step.
Well, step one is making sure that we're not a parliamentary procedure debating society. And
Sure.
maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but, you know, just to give you an example, you know, I've been to 30 state conventions since I got elected at large and have been chair of the National Party. So I've seen us at our best, and I've seen us maybe not so hot. And, you know, there was one state convention I went to where they spent 2 days rewriting their bylaws, which at their annual state convention, and that's all they did. And, you know, maybe that needed to happen, but there were new people showing up for the first time at that convention, and they've never come back after that, because they were told implicitly or explicitly that the Libertarian Party is out to change the world. We're out to achieve freedom in our lifetime. We're out to, you know, advance great public policy solutions. We're get the, you know, smaller government and more individual freedom. And they showed up, and that's not what they experienced. There was no discussion of how are we going to elect people. There was no discussion about how do we change our messaging to reach more people. There was no discussion about what are we lobbying against this upcoming legislative session. There was no training on how to do these things. It was just parliamentary procedure debating society. And if that's all you offer, all you'll get is people who want a parliamentary procedure debating society. And other people, they will do other things with their hard-earned money and their finite time. So, you know, you got to think about these things when you're planning your events and you're preparing things to do. And that's why it's so important to me that we have an activism aspect to the National Party, so that we're providing those opportunities out there. I was president of the College Libertarians at UC Berkeley, which is an amazing experience that I really should write a book about one day. But one of the things we did in April was we had Freedom Week, where we basically took over the quad and handed out information on 3 different things that happened to have occurred in the second week of April, or third week of April. And that's the battles of Lexington and Concord, when the British government came to take American guns, and we showed what Americans do when you do that. And it was also the attack on Waco, which most people know very little about, and most people don't understand what really happened there. And you know, we didn't have that new drama that just came out last year that I think actually did a very good job of showing what the ATF was really trying to do there and how horrible it was. And then it's also the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, when you know, people were literally being exterminated, and they had their back to the walls, and with no hope of success chose to fight, even though everybody knew how that was going to end. And so, you know, we libertarians that's what the face we were putting forward about how people need to know more about these 3 things. And so it was just that all week. And we brought in speakers, and we showed films, and we handed out stuff on the quad and everything. And, you know, you didn't walk through the UC Berkeley campus, you know, on those 5 days without knowing about those 3 issues and learning about them. And, you know, that's maybe what works for a campus. And, you know, if you're running a state party, you got to come up with other innovative ways of trying to reach voters and potential members and everything. But you know, we offer a lot, and we can put stuff in a context that escapes a lot of people. People are busy. They're trying to live their lives. They're trying to raise their kids. They're trying to earn income. So we got to fit into that. But we have a message that really needs to get out there, and a lot of eager people able and willing to do it.
Excellent. Myra, did you have something?
Yeah, I just I've seen a lot of social media going around this week, and I kind of wanted to touch base about this a little bit. A lot of states have been sharing a meme that's going around that Iowa has passed a school choice bill. Well, it's gone to the Senate. It's being fast tracked. It is a school choice bill. I just kind of wanted to touch base for everybody that has concerns, because I'm seeing a lot of pro and against, pros and cons. A lot of people standing up for the teachers unions and are getting all up in arms about this bill. So I kind of want to, if I can for a second, just lay out what exactly this bill is and what it does, so everybody knows. It's not what we would want in a school choice bill. It might be a good step. I think it's lip service, 100%. It's definitely nothing to get upset about. Basically, what it says is schools in Iowa that are receiving a failing grade, those students can receive a scholarship. They can apply for a scholarship for money to be taken to a private school. The reality of the situation is only 34 schools in the entire state are failing. So that's a very limited number of people that can even apply for this scholarship. And the locations of those schools are mostly in places where there are no other options to take the scholarship money to. There are no other market solutions, private schools, or otherwise to take that money. This is unfortunately being used as a leverage by the people who support teachers unions to be able to say, well, the governor is taking public funds and they want to put it to private schools, and that's probably not even going to be the case in many situations. So I'm a big advocate for school choice. My campaign heavily hits on it. I'm very knowledgeable about what that looks like in my world, but it's not even worth fighting about at this point, because it's not the bill that we would want it to be. I don't know what school choice looks like on in your neck of the woods, Joe. Is it an issue out there?
It's a very big issue in DC. We've got a school, actually I would say one of the leading school choice programs for K through 6. And there was actually a drama or a documentary on, I think it's called The Lottery, because it's done by lottery. There's not enough spots. And of course, we have a very large African-American population in the District of Columbia, and the schools that serve the predominantly Black neighborhoods, in many cases, are not very good. And so they're actually the primary constituency for wanting to keep and expand this program against the teachers unions and the education industry that wants to just have failing schools and trap students in them. Mm-hmm. So I don't envy you having to deal with legislative sausage making. I deal with it all the time myself, and it's hard, especially, and you got to give people some leeway, because there as of yet are no libertarians in the Iowa legislature. You're trying to do your best with Democrats and Republicans as 100% of the representatives there, and so that necessarily means it's really hard to get them to do libertarian things. Not impossible, but really hard. That's why we need more libertarians at the table, and it's really transforming when we get libertarians at the table, because we quickly end up, forming leadership or coalition building roles. We understand the left in a way the right never will. Mm-hmm. We understand the right in a way the left never will. So we can be that bridge to help come up with better solutions. And I always say, if we were able to get 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 libertarians in the United States Senate and be the balance of power, it could be so dramatically transforming for the outcomes. And it's what the classical liberal parties in some parts of Europe are able to do. In Estonia, our counterpart party there, they only get 18, 20, 22% of the vote, but because they keep the other two parties below majority, they're able to essentially be the do or die in every coalition, and that comes with all the conditions that we insist on for being a part of a government. And so that's how Estonia has probably one of the simplest tax systems in the country, and does so well on so many of the other metrics that are analyzed by people like the Cato Institute and the Fraser Institute and the Tax Foundation. It's a real possibility for us if we're able to maybe make some changes into the electoral system and get more people elected.
Absolutely.
We're coming up on about 5 minutes to the broadcast. This is usually when we do plugs. I do want to hit up another question. I think this is a really pressing issue that we need to discuss. Mittens better than gloves. What is your preference?
Is this a Bernie Sanders thing?
I believe so.
Oh. I have gloves. I don't have mittens. My mother-in-law did give me a pair of mittens. I haven't worn them yet, so you made me confess that, unfortunately. So I'm a bad son-in-law.
Oh no.
Yeah.
She's probably not even watching. It's okay. Nobody watches this show.
Yeah. The interesting story though, they talked. Some reporter found the person who made the mittens that Bernie was wearing. It's a Vermont a woman in Vermont. I think she sells them on Etsy or something. And she actually said she stopped selling them, or she still makes them, but she stopped selling them because all of the regulations and taxes associated with selling them were too overwhelming and made it not worth it. So now she just gives them away because it's government makes it too hard to sell them.
Sure.
Wow.
Well, yeah, and I have to tell you, speaking of nobody watching this, I have to warn you that great things have happened to all of our other guests who have been on this show. I mean, Spike was here. Look what happened to him. I mean, our show is a launching pad for people most of the time. So.
I'm gonna get a bump of some kind.
Yeah, you might get a raise.
Exactly.
My salary as chair of the LP is gonna double. So
there we go. All thanks to us. Just remember that. It's all thanks to Iowa, right? So. And I'm going to weigh in on the whole
position. So.
I'm going to weigh in on the whole gloves thing. I'm a hunter, as you can probably see right back there. I got antlers on the wall. So obviously I need to have my trigger finger open. So no mittens on my part. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Real quick, and before we end, I want to be able to give everybody the opportunity to do some plugs. I know we have ours for the LPIA page. But Joe, any plugs, any websites you want people to visit, and how can people get involved with the Libertarian Party at the national level?
Well, lp.org/join, and actually, this maybe we could do a better. We at National could do a better job communicating this, but our state and national party memberships are actually separate. So if you're a member of the Iowa Party, you're not necessarily a member of National, and vice versa. So I would really hope all members of the Iowa Party join the National Party. It helps expand actually Iowa's voice in the National Party. It changes the formulas and they get more weight and all of that. But it also goes for very good efforts and programs and all of the exciting things that we're working on with candidate recruitment and training and getting more libertarians elected. And then vice versa, any national members in Iowa who are not members of the state party certainly join the Iowa Party as well.
Excellent. Myra, anything to plug this time around? I know you're not running actively. You're trying to avoid doing stuff. I get that, but I want to give you the opportunity.
Mike, you know what? I relinquished running for a spot in the SEC for the first time in 8 years so I could be free of things to do, right? And I finished up my campaign. I was I was a staffer on Joe's campaign, so then I was super busy with that. I had an entire week off before I got a call from Dan Berman saying, "Hey, I've got some projects for you." So I'm astoundingly, incredibly busy. I have nothing to plug at the moment, but wait, it's coming.
There we go. That is fantastic. As far as my plugs go, as always, I want to start out with lpia.org/volunteer, because in the end, we need people, just like we talked about when it came to ballot access. We need people to come in, step up, help us out, grow an affiliate in your county. Volunteers are essential for the state party. So if you can go to lpia.org/volunteer. You can sign up. It doesn't matter if you want to do social media, if you want to be able to start an affiliate, if you want to be able to join an affiliate, if you want to be able to help us out in regards to reach out and help candidates in in your area, go to lpia.org/volunteer, sign up. Of course, we would also invite you to join the LPIA from a from a monetary standpoint. You can go to lpia.org/donate. $20. You get to become a dues-paying member of the LPIA. Fortunately, with us, you don't have to pay to become a member. All you have to do is register to be a Libertarian, and you're a member of the Libertarian Party of Iowa. But we can't do shows like this. We can't do things. I don't want to spoil it.
Well, don't tell them we do shows like this like during the week and we don't put it live.
Exactly. Exactly.
Zoom together and pretend we do a show.
There you go. Exactly. But we can't do stuff like this. We can't do the convention. That there may be some information coming out here within the next week, just to kind of warn you guys. I don't want to spoil it, but there is some information coming out. So keep an eye on the LPIA page on Facebook, on Twitter. It's coming. But lpia.org/donate. Help us out, and we appreciate all your support. And last but not least, thanks for visiting the Speakeasy, JBH.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. I really appreciate you taking your time out tonight. And hopefully we can talk to you very soon again.
Yeah, Joe's an old friend. I'm glad he's watching there. Great to see him again. And thank you, Myra. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Excellent. Folks, have a great evening. As always, hope to see you back soon. Go visit our Facebook page. Go visit the LPI.org page, and enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great evening, everybody.